Welcome to Monday Motivation. Now, this podcast is not going to be long enough to even get you to work, but it will give you a lot to work on, because the most important thing you can work on in life is yourself. Hey, welcome back to Monday Motivation. Glad you guys are with us. And you know, we've been talking about in this season, changing the conversation. If you change who you talk to and what you talk about, can change your life. And it's one thing to go through the Lord's Prayer like we've done and talk about an acrostic, but it's a whole other thing when we get to talk to somebody who's actually applied this. And so my very special guest today is a very accomplished businessman. He's an innovator, he's an entrepreneur, he's a CEO, he's a business owner, he's an influencer. He's been in Forbes magazine. UT business students write about this guy. He's famous. And he's done a lot of podcasts, so this is not a new format to him. But it is a new subject because people really seek you out for business advice and for success and business and finance and those kind of things. And so, but Dan, you've been a great friend, and we've taken a journey together. And I just want you to share with those listening today and with us today, just how has this principle of changing the conversation and us just spending some time together change your life?
Well, first of all, some clarification. This is my third, maybe second podcast. So
Perfect.
Just
So
correction.
very
selective.
I was just trying to build you
Yeah,
up.
no, very selective. The rest of that nonsense, brother, come on. You know, it's enough. But no, thank you for those kind words. So we're just jumping into it like that.
Yeah, jumping into it.
It kind of makes me want to talk about, though, what made me call you.
Good. Let's talk about that
Right.
first.
I know we're going to probably need to break this up into about 4 or 5 parts. So let me just start by saying there was an incident occurred. All right. Mm-hmm. So as a result of that incident, I was experiencing a great deal of shame, pain. And as I looked around my life, let's say, you know, who is it that I could reach out to, knowing that I needed help, but a kind of help that I didn't know. I didn't know exactly what that was, right? Also, very personal matter. Okay, one that could wreck a person's lives, or wreck a person's life, I should say. So what made me think about you, Micah, was that, when we had met the first time, I guess it's been going probably 20 years now, if I had to do the math. Yeah, in fact, it's probably 19 or 20 years ago. There was, I was attracted to you just as a man. They call that a bromance. But over the course of our relationship, just kind of leaning into each other at different times, and also watching you and how you handled some very adverse situations that you'd experienced personally, I just felt really compelled that, you could be the guy that I could lean into in a way that, and let me say it this way, the only person that I knew that I could call and lean into in a way that was so personal, but also relatable in some ways. So anyway, that's what made me call you. Knowing that there was going to have to, some significant change take place in where my head was at the time, and really where my heart was too. So,
yeah. And I think a lot of the people connected to this podcast can relate to the word stuck, can relate to the word, my head and heart were just not in a good place. Where do I turn? Something needs to change. All those themes. We'll definitely get into a little bit of the story of what caused you to be in that place, but that's what caused you to reach out. And I think everybody hits a place where they say, I need to change the conversation. And so for you can say, hey, I'm going to reach out and have a conversation with a guy, and we've known each other. We just, haven't been proximity close and those kind of things. And so I need to reach out and start a different conversation. So as we talked and as we began to unpack some of the things you were dealing with, how did the conversation with God change? And maybe we can even go back and say, you know what, like, we're not talking about religion, okay, but you had some pretty deep wounds even around that, just, you know, things that had happened where you're like, you know, I don't know if I even trust those Christian people, and definitely that church space, but I know I need something spiritual. I need direction, and I'm pretty sure there's a God up there. How did that crisis in your life and us beginning to interact about that change your conversation with God?
You know, I did get hurt in church, but I think one, you know, as I matured, both as a person, as a man, I got a lot of grace for people. Let me just say it that way. All right. So I never felt, even though I was hurt in church, I didn't feel animosity towards leaders or leadership or God. And that's where I'm landing, is that I was never mad at God, you know, and so to your point, or to your question, you know, I'm struggling to think about how to think about the changing the conversation. I don't think it was Micah changing the conversation with God necessarily. It was, one big part was in starting one again. That's the first part, starting one again. Okay? And then the next piece of that for me, I think, was allowing. That's what it is. Allowing God to speak to me.
Wow. I think a lot of people can relate to what you just said, no matter what the background or the baggage or where you are on that journey. But I need to start the conversation. And I think for a lot of people, it is starting again. It's like, I've known he's been there, I've, you know, had conversations with him before, maybe in childhood or maybe on a plane with turbulence. But either way, I need to start a conversation. And then I love your word. I need to allow him to speak to me again, to begin that communication, that relationship, and to rekindle those things. And it's powerful.
For me, it was really, and I'm still, I want to say, I don't want to use the word struggling, but I'm still working through shame and because now I'm beginning to experience some areas where I was really blaming others, where it was really the shame that I was experiencing that was causing me so much pain, right? And so, and saying that, it's really layered, right? Yeah. That shame, though, I think, was disallowing me. I felt guilty, like, about going to God. Like, man, you got way too much stuff going on. This is not that big of a deal. There's a lot of other people that are hurting, you know, that are dealing with significant. I mean, literally, I was comparing my pain to others who, you know, had experienced. That's what we do, especially when you're dealing with shame. It's like, I don't deserve to feel this way, which is nuts. I mean, that is absolutely not of God, you know. And so as I began to work with you, and you know, hey, and just that encouragement and many of the concepts that, you know, you were helping me with, what was great is that I began to realize my ego, really, which God created. It's healthy to have one, otherwise we die. It was as I started seeing myself as Daniel again, right? Not as Dan, the entrepreneur or the businessman or the this, that, and the other, all these things that you were talking about. Because to me, and I'm Daniel. To God, I'm Daniel, his son. In fact, I thought I was Daniel in the lion's den until I was about 10 years old. Seriously. So that's it. I think I landed that plane.
For sure. Yeah. I so many nuggets in what you just said. This journey, you've gone from blame and realizing, oh my goodness, now there's shame. And then it's, I don't deserve a conversation. I think a lot of people can relate to that. Like, hey, I should have a conversation with God. He's busy.
Yes.
Who am I?
and especially if you're going back. Like if you're
Yeah.
hurting,
Yeah.
you keep going back. You're like, what's wrong with me?
Yeah.
Why can't I just get over this?
Yeah.
You
That's
know?
a whole nother level. But I like what you
And
said.
God's not part of that conversation either.
No.
He's not even in it. You're not even inviting him. It's like you're having a conversation outside of the room, and he might be knocking. He might not. You don't even know you're in here. You're not saying anything.
Yeah. Yeah. You're just on the merry-go-round.
Yeah, just feeling sorry for yourself.
No, for sure. Yeah. Shame really does lock you in, or just as a blanket, like covers you up. But even going back to that, I don't deserve it. I think that a lot of people can relate to that, where you just give God all the reasons why he shouldn't listen to you. Or you can say like, hey, to your point, they are hurting more than me.
Yes.
There's so many people that have been through much more severe trauma, have much more severe challenges. Why would God even care? Mm-hmm. And I love how you said, I started seeing myself as Daniel again, but also realizing that God looks through all of the, as you mentioned, the titles and the accomplishments and the things that we put on, social media, or, say like, hey, I'm an entrepreneur, I'm a business person, or I'm successful, or I'm a CEO, all those titles, and just sees you as Daniel.
Right.
You've got a father, and end of the day, you're a child that he loves. Mm-hmm. He that he wants to talk to. Mm-hmm. So very, very powerful. So that our time together, those concepts, that conversation, just beginning to talk to him again, how has that changed your view of you, what you have going on against you, around you, opportunities? How has that changes how you see life?
Universally, right? So I think, and even as you're talking, I'm thinking, I like to do other people's thinking, and even maybe how God might be thinking about it. So as you were talking to me, I thought he must be thinking, man, I was here the whole time. I mean, y'all got to do podcasts down there, and it's like, is this what y'all are doing these days? Kind of thing.
Yeah.
But no, it's immensely changed my attitude, mainly towards me. That's the truth. Because I'm beginning to see me the way God does. Man, that's powerful. That hits me hard. Knowing that I'm loved. Unconditionally. That's the good stuff. Because I think that, just that shame and what have you, as you begin to start that conversation and certainly maintain it. And it makes me want to talk about what the idea of prayer. I mean, it's just communicating with God, right? However that is for you. But that's definitely it. The conversation and me just almost for many months, just being almost in a constant state of, seeking God. I mean, it's true. When you're at the bottom, I mean, there are no atheists in foxholes. I mean, there's a lot of truth to that, man. It's like, even if you don't believe in God, you want to when you're at the bottom, so. But yeah, mainly how I see myself. Yeah. Just the way God does,
Well, we're going to talk about that in our next episode.
Are we out of time?
We're going to talk about the bottom,
okay,
and what that looks like in the next episode. But what a great place to land this episode. You are worth all that God had. You're unconditionally loved. He loves to listen to you. Mm-hmm. He actually,
I like that, yeah.
Yeah, he loves to communicate with you. And when you are talking even today, it's just, people don't realize, oh man, prayer is something I have to do, but it changes who you are, and it changes how you see yourself. And when you change how you see yourself, you change everything. And
everything changes around you too.
Join us next time. Dan and I are going to keep this conversation going about changing the conversation. And we're going to dig into one of the darkest moments of his life so that we can find some more nuggets that we've heard just like today. So join us next time on Monday Motivation.